Hello. Welcome to Archival Adventures. I am Anthony Wright Day Hernandez, Community Collections Archivist here at Virginia Tech. You may know me on the internet as Rogan27, and this is my weekly Wednesday show from the library at Virginia Tech, where I share materials from the archives. So welcome. I think it's probably going to be a bit of a small group today. That's totally fine. How about we dive in? Just going to go ahead and start with the land and labor acknowledgement, which is we take a look at the top of every stream, and then we'll get into today's content. Hi, Hannah. Okay, Virginia Tech acknowledges that we live and work on the Tutelo and Monacan people's homeland, and we recognize their continued relationships with their lands and waterways. We further acknowledge that the Morrill Land Grant College Act of 1862 enabled the Commonwealth of Virginia to finance and found Virginia Tech through the forced removal of Native nations from their lands in Western territories. We understand that honoring Native peoples without explicit material commitments falls short of our institutional responsibilities. Through sustained, transparent, and meaningful engagement with the Tutelo and Monacan peoples and other Native nations, we commit to changing the trajectory of Virginia Tech's history by increasing Indigenous student, staff, and faculty recruitment and retention, diversifying course offerings, and meeting the growing needs of all Virginia tribes and supporting their sovereignty. Virginia Tech acknowledges that its Blacksburg campus sits partly on land that was previously the site of the Smithfield and Solitude plantations, owned by members of the Preston family. Between the 1770s and the 1860s, the Prestons and other local white families that owned parcels of what became Virginia Tech also owned hundreds of enslaved people. We acknowledge that enslaved black people generated wealth that financed the predecessor institution to Virginia Tech, the Preston and Olin Institute. And they also worked on construction of its building. Not until 1953, however, was the first black student permitted to enroll. Through Inclusive VT, the institutional and individual commitment to IDPROSIN that I may serve, in the spirit of community, diversity, and excellence, we commit to advancing a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. So, let's take a look at what the plan is for today's adventure, and then we can start looking at some materials. So here's the stuff that I have pulled and available for today. The topic today is Flag Day, which is a holiday in the United States of America. It is not one of the well-known holidays, and so hopefully today we can look at possibly a little bit of history of Flag Day and why it exists and where did it come from, and I'm not certain that I necessarily have that info in the materials, but we can take a look at it for sure, just to go over like why the heck is there an entire holiday that celebrates the flag. And then I have a bunch of items that have been pulled. Any of these are available for us to look at. So if there's one of them that sounds interesting and you want to see it, let me know. And I will make sure that it makes it onto camera. So let me see where I want to start. Yeah. I have some highlights that are like on my sheet, but none of them talk about like why does this holiday exist? Which I kind of feel like we should look at, right? I'm going to go ahead and at least get something up here. And then once I have something on the screen, I'll take a moment. I will go and look for a little bit of history to share. Just to get us started. Top down. I actually don't have that even open yet. Completely forgot. But I will be ready. The Star-Spangled Banner at the top always reminds me of the drummer's version of the song. It's the lyrics, but with boom and crash, when that's what the drums are doing. So it's, oh, say, can you see? Boom, crash. I could see why that would be slightly humorous. Let's see. Let me just at least get this ready so that if I need to change the camera zoom, I'm logged in. Your high school band instructor had it hanging in on his office window? So this is the service version of the song, meaning that this would have been like the version used by the armed forces. In fact, it says, service version prepared for the Army and Navy song and band books, and for the school and community singing by, and for school and community singing by a committee of 12, consisting of John Alden Carpenter, Frederick Converse, Wallace Goodrich, and Walter R. Spalding, representing the War Department Commission on Training Camp Activities, Peter W. Dykema, Hollis Dan, and Osborne McConaughey, representing the Music Supervisors National Conference, C.C. Burchard, Carl Engel, William Arms Fisher, Arthur Edward Johnstone, and E.W. Newton, representing music publishers, and Chairman, Mr. Dykema. A summary of its deliberations may be obtained from the chairman at the University of Wisconsin. The service version may be freely used and designated as such, provided it be printed without change of melody, harmony, or rhythm. Ooh, thank you for the link there, Hannah, to the full drum version. This appears to just be the vocals, which this is a typical vocal score because it has the two bars here that would be for the pianist to accompany. Okay, let me look and discover, hopefully, the history of this holiday. Helps if I type on the right keyboard. I have definitely looked this up before because I know I was glancing at it before, or like when I was prepping the stream. That doesn't mean that I noted where I was looking or what I found. That's not what I was looking for at the time, but okay, so this is just from Wikipedia. Great place for just like basic primer, like what is this thing? And then if you want to follow deeper, get deeper knowledge, you can follow like the things linked therein. In the United States, Flag Day is celebrated on June 14th, which is today, if anybody wasn't sure. Well, it's today here. I understand there might be people who are already on the 15th, but it's Wednesday, June 14th here. It commemorates the adoption of the flag of the United States on June 14th, 1777, by resolution of the Second Continental Congress. The flag resolution passed on June 14th, 1777, stated, resolved that the flag of the 13 United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field, representing a new constellation. The United States Army also celebrates the U.S. Army birthday on this date. In 1916, President Woodrow Wilson issued a proclamation that officially established June 14th as Flag Day. And then on August 3rd, 1949, National Flag Day was established by an act of Congress. Flag Day is not an official federal holiday, therefore federal employees still work today. However, it's at the president's discretion to officially proclaim the observance. On June 14, 1937, Pennsylvania became the first U.S. state to celebrate Flag Day as a state holiday, beginning in the town of Rennerdale. And New York consolidated laws designate the second Sunday in June as Flag Day, a state holiday. Interesting. Okay. It's, like I said, not a holiday that is terribly well known, but it's one that I've been aware of basically my whole life because it also happens to be my brother's birthday, and for some reason that connection meant that we knew that it was Flag Day. So anyway, I thought it'd be interesting for Flag Day to see what we can find in the archives to learn about the flag itself. Of course, one of the names for the flag is the Star-Spangled Banner. And there is a song, that which is being displayed here. I am not going to be singing the Star-Spangled Banner for you. My voice is definitely not in the condition to sing this song. But you can see this lovely art illustration here. And then, of course, you know, this gets performed at sporting events and official observances, and basically everybody's heard this song before. You used to be able to play this song from memory thanks to high school band. I could probably get part of the way through it, but I definitely could not hit the high note today. That is not something that would happen for me. So rather than embarrass myself on stream and cause you to have to suffer through, I still play it in community band every Memorial Day. Gosh, I probably haven't played it since high school when I was in band. So let's see what the historical note has to tell us. The music to which the Star-Spangled Banner is sung was written by John Stafford Smith, an English organist and composer of prominence. He was born at Gloucester about March 1750 and died in London September 21st, 1836. About 1775, Smith wrote the music for a convivial song to a poem by Ralph Tomlinson, To Anacreon in Heaven, which became well known as the Anacreontic song. Its popularity crossed the Atlantic, and the melody was used in this country with various texts, the most widely sung being Adams and Liberty by Robert Treat Paine of Boston. This was first sung and published on June 1st, 1798, and became very popular. When the Star-Spangled Banner appeared in Baltimore 16 years later, it was labeled "to be sung to the tune of Anacreon in heaven." The text of the Star-Spangled Banner was written by Francis Scott Key, a lawyer by profession who was born in Frederick County, Maryland, August 9, 1780, and died in Baltimore, January 11, 1843. About September 12, 1814, he, with the approval of President Madison, visited the admiral of the British fleet in Chesapeake Bay to secure the release of his friend Dr. Beams. This was granted, but he and his party were detained on board because of the intended attack on Baltimore. The patriot, Key, was thus compelled to witness the bombardment of Fort McHenry, which began on the morning of September 13th and lasted until the early hours of the 14th, when, by dawn's early light, he saw that our flag was still there. The attack having failed, Key and his party were released and the fleet withdrawn. In the fervor of the moment, Key sketched the lines of the song on the back of a letter and finished them after reaching Baltimore. They were printed in the Baltimore Patriot on September 20th, 1814, the Baltimore American of September 21st, and in a handbill struck off at the time. A comparison of Adams and Liberty given above with the Star-Spangled Banner shows how the attrition of 100 years has gradually changed the melody, softening the angularity of the original and adding zest to the rhythm. The Great War of 1914 to 1918 having brought the song into new prominence and nationwide use, it became necessary to prepare a standard version for the Army and Navy song and band books and for school and community singing. For this purpose, the version printed within was prepared by a committee of 12. WAF, which is War something. Oh no, not War. It's WAF is William Arms Fisher, who I'm guessing was the chairperson of the committee? I'm not certain. But hi, Shadows. It's good to see you. Yeah. The Star-Spangled Banner. I will not be singing it. Not gonna happen. Not hard to find a recorded version of someone having sung it if you want to hear it. But I can tell you, my voice is not up to it today for sure. Let's see. Next, I have a folder here from the Colonel Temple papers. I'd have to take off my hat for that. I suppose it would be expected. All right, there's a number of things in here, but the one I want is, actually, oh, it's inside this booklet. The Flags and Coats of Arms of the American Nations. So this is coming from the Harry Downing Temple Jr. papers. And let's see, Harry Downing Temple Jr. was born in Elizabeth City County, now Hampton, Virginia, on October 24th, 1911, and reared in Petersburg, Virginia. He attended Virginia Tech as a member of the Corps of Cadets from 1930 to 1934 and graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Industrial Engineering. He was a professional officer of the United States Army and participated in World War II and the Korean War, rising to the rank of colonel. From 1961 to 66, he headed the Army's Institute of Heraldry and designed the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He retired from the Army in 1966 and died in 2004. So he was involved with the U.S. Army heraldry, which is part of why we have a heraldry collection, I believe. It's not one of our main collecting areas today, but we have a lot of materials. And I did not know this about him until I just read the note now, and I'm like, there's potential there. I'm gonna have to look and see what we have on his designing the Medal of Freedom, because that might be pretty interesting to share on stream sometime. But for now, I thought we would take a look here. So this booklet is focused on, this is Pan-American Day, Flags and Coats of Arms of the American Nations. This was something done by the Pan-American Union. And it gives information about flags and coats of arms for various American countries. There's this paper inserted here, the flags of America. And that's what we're going to be looking at for sure. This is new enough that it is the 50-star flag. So, but I don't see an actual like publication date anywhere. So I don't know the exact year that this was published. But when I glanced at it, it was interesting. So let's see what we have. The flags of America. I'm not sure, Shadows, what you're asking about. But yes, we're talking. So, oh yes, this is the one. My note to myself on this was no mention of indigenous people. So, yeah. Which maybe they decided that the indigenous people didn't have flags as such, but I don't know that the Vikings necessarily did either. Anyway, so I think that this was possibly penned either by or for Colonel Temple. Ah, pansexual. Oh gosh, wow, oh wow. It took me forever. I didn't register which flag was, which emote you were using. And even then, after you explained, it took me a beat to connect with Pan American. And yeah, it took me a minute. I apologize. Clearly, I am not firing on all cylinders at the moment. I was so focused and it just right over my head. Yeah. So there's some stuff crossed out here. The parenthetical at the top says talk given at the Colonel John Donaldson chapter DCDAR, which would be the Washington, D.C. Daughters of the American Revolution, meeting held at the University Women's Club, 1708 New Hampshire Avenue, 9 March 1963. I don't know if it was actually given there or if it being crossed through means that they never actually gave the talk. It's also got the name Pearl Norman up here, which my assumption is that Pearl Norman is maybe the person who was meant to be giving this talk. I don't know, but we'll see what they said. The history of our country is wrapped in the flags which flew above those momentous days of its discovery and growth. Many flags have flashed across the pages which gave us old glory as we know it today. The first flags which appeared on our continent were those of the great maritime nations of the old world. So, see, this is why I made a note to myself, like, there is no mention of indigenous people at all in the introduction to this. Given that it appears to have been written sometime in early 1963, and just my knowledge of mid-century America, I would say that's not unexpected. A complete just ignore them as though they weren't even here. That is certainly a perspective that predominated in the United States of America in the mid-20th century. So not exactly surprising, but also just basically means whatever is put forward by this document is something that should probably be validated against other sources or taken with a grain of salt, to like approach it with like, this is a narrative that was crafted for a purpose, and quite obviously leaves out some of the history that it is possible to know. So if this was crafted for the Daughters of the American Revolution, that is a relatively conservative organization, and so Shadows of Life, I'm wondering, like, that is possible. That the reason the indigenous people are not mentioned is that they didn't use flags, and this is about flags. That said, I would still think that it would make sense to mention them. Because if you're going as comprehensively as to talk about the Vikings, probably would make sense to mention that there were already people here. Anyway, I'm going to read through what they have to say. So, nearly 500 years before Columbus, in the year 1000, Leif, the son of Eric the Red, with a crew of 35 Norsemen, followed the track whereby Björn had been the first European to see, from a distance, the coast of the North American mainland. The Norsemen anchored and went on shore, probably at Newfoundland, and after a brief delay continued their voyage to the southwest. There's a notation above this name of how to pronounce, like, syllables to pronounce. I just can't make out what it says. Interesting. So they've crossed out. They are reputed to have landed on the north shore of Long Island Sound. They crossed that part out and just went with, finding the country very pleasant, they spent the winter, calling their settlement Leifsbuter. The land was found to abound with wild grapes. Thus, Leif gave the new country the name of Vinland. His Viking flag, with its black raven, is accepted as the first to fly over the American continent. History records several off-and-on exploratory efforts onto the American continent by the Scandinavians until the year 1347, by which time the heroic age of the Northmen and their power and spirit of enterprise had passed. Ooh. Thank you, Hannah. I want to see. If you're just listening and not seeing, Hannah shared a link to an article, A Brief History of Native American Flags. The history of the Native American flag is a complicated one. There is no one answer to the question of whether or not there were Native American flags before colonization. The answer depends on a number of factors, including the specific tribe or nation in question, the time period in question, and the interpretation of the term flag. Yeah. Some Native American tribes did have flags or other symbols that served a similar purpose. For example, the Lakota tribe had a banner known as a tetonwan, which was used to represent the tribe in battle. However, these banners were not necessarily flags in the traditional sense of the word. Other tribes had flags that were more similar to what we think of as flags today. The Iroquois Confederacy, which was a group of 6 Native American nations, had a flag that was adopted in 1775. This flag was used by the Iroquois during the American Revolutionary War. So while there were some Native American tribes that had flags before colonization, there was no universal practice of flag waving among all Native American tribes. The use of flags by Native Americans was largely a product of contact with European colonists. Interesting. So that's an interesting article. I'll have to read more of it later because I think it's neat. What is this site? Indian Country Extensions? Indian Country Extension. Oh, okay. So this site features the programs of extension professionals who work almost exclusively in Indian country, defined as Indian reservations, communities, and tribal jurisdictional areas. They are employees of the extension organizations within 15 selected 1862 land-grant universities and potentially all 35 1994 tribal land-grant colleges. Several are employed directly with their tribe. Awesome. So it's an educational resource specifically, because extension professionals are university employees, basically, related to whichever of those universities. So, regardless of whether we have concrete evidence, yeah, so it fits right in for this stream. Yeah, it's a perfect source to have shared. Regardless of whether we have concrete evidence that indigenous tribal nations used flags, whatever your definition of flag, it would have made sense to mention that they existed as part of the introduction to whatever this history of American flags. All right. Information of these voyages existed in Europe as traditional tales of the exploits of the Vikings, but the new lands often were considered to be a part of the European continent connected along the icebound regions of the north. When Columbus conceived the grand idea of reaching Asia by sailing westward, no account of the Scandinavian voyages was current in Europe. Christopher Columbus visited Iceland in the spring of 1477, 15 years before his first voyage to America. 2. Columbus flag? Columbus brought the lion and castle quartered royal flag of Spain to the island of San Salvador. His landing on the 12th of October, 1492, was described by his son. Columbus, dressed in scarlet, first stepped on shore from the little boat which bore him from his vessels, bearing the royal standard of Spain emblazoned with the arms of Castile and Leon in his own hand, followed by the Pinzons in their own boats, each bearing the banner of the expedition. It was under this same royal flag that Balboa discovered the Pacific Ocean, Ponce de Leon, Florida, and Magellan sailed around the world. I'm sorry, I don't understand the sentiment of Balboa discovering the Pacific Ocean. That is something beyond what I have previously heard. I guess I never, to me, the discovery of the Pacific seems like it would not be a thing the same way that the discovery of the Mediterranean or the discovery of the Atlantic would not be a thing. They just are. But I suppose from a European perspective, somebody discovered the Pacific. It just never occurred to me before. So, yeah. Anyway, 2A, Expeditionary Banner. The Expeditionary Banner of Columbus, the one which was borne ashore by the Pinzons, was white with a green cross, having on each side the letters F and Y, surmounted by golden crowns. So this is very specifically talking about, what were these flags and what did they look like, which is pretty neat, especially if you're into the sort of heraldic emblems. 3, the St. George flag. The news of the success of Columbus quickened the interest of Henry VII of England. On the 5th of March, 1496, he issued a patent to John Cabot. He issued a patent to John Cabot and his 3 sons to sail early in May 1497 under the royal banners and ensigns to all parts, countries, and seas of the east, of the west, and of the north, and to seek out and discover whatsoever isles, countries, regions, and provinces in what part of the world soever they might be, which before this time had been unknown to Christians. On the 24th of June, 1497, Cabot planted the royal flag of England, the St. George Cross, on the shores of Labrador. Except for the Viking flag, it was the first to fly over the mainland of America. Upon his return from that first voyage, I don't know if it's Cabot or Cabot, but proclaimed the discovery of portions of Asia. It was not until the more extensive discoveries of his second voyage that Cabot recognized the new land to be a wild, barbarous, and impassable barrier to the rich possessions of China. I'm sorry, what? A wild, barbarous, and impassable barrier to the rich possessions of China. Wild, possibly by European standards. I might be able to see how that term applies. Impassable barrier, I suppose, although that's just a lack of ambition. Barbarous, I think, is uncalled for, because it was actually quite civilized. Just a different kind of civilization than Europeans wanted to acknowledge. 4, the King's Color. On the 12th of April, 1606, King James of the newly united Kingdom of England and Scotland issued a proclamation ordaining the ships of both nations to carry on their maintops the crosses of St. George and St. Andrew interlaced, English vessels being authorized to display the flag of St. George and Scottish vessels the flag of St. Andrew in their sterns. The new King's Color first came to America with the colonists who set sail from England on the 19th of December of that same year and reached the colony of Virginia on the 26th of April, 1607, and established the first permanent English settlement in America at Jamestown on the 14th of May. This flag remained the flag of the British colonists for more than 100 years. I guess, it makes total perfect sense to me that these would be flags that people brought with them. It just, in my brain, thinking about these times, I never thought about what flag they were here under. I never thought about that at all. But, of course they would have been under, the British flag of the time. or the French flag of the time, or whatever. The fleur-de-lis flag, onward from the year 1524, the French, under the fleur-de-lis, explored the American coast from Newfoundland to Florida in their attempts to plant colonies. The Bourbon flag, the white flag of the Bourbons, was made the French national emblem in 1659, and it became the flag of the French settlers in Canada. As they pushed westward and down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico, they carried the Bourbon flag, for which more than 30 years floated over that vast wilderness empire. Oh, that's very poetic. The French tricolor. The French Revolution brought the tricolor as the national flag of France. The tricolor left the Louisiana Territory in 1803 when it was purchased from Napoleon by the young United States of America. And then the flags of the Netherlands, fitfully from the time of the explorations of Henry Hudson in 1609 until 1674, when Clove surrendered to Sir Edmund Andros, the new English governor. The flags of the Netherlands were a part of the American scene along our seaboard from New York to Delaware, except that you should, in this context, rightly call it New Amsterdam, not New York, because it was New Amsterdam before it was New York. It was a Dutch colony. Anyway. The flag of Sweden. In 1638, Peter Minute Menuet, according to the pronunciation help handwritten above it, Peter Menuet, in the service of Sweden, established a settlement which he named Fort Christina for the child queen apparent of Sweden, near what is now Wilmington, Delaware. He named the entire territory New Sweden, extending indefinitely westward from the Delaware River between Bombay Hook and the mouth of the Schuylkill River. New Sweden passed into Dutch control with its capture by Peter Stuyvesant in 1655. This is an interesting perspective on American history, and not one that I was actually presented with in school. Like, we never talked about the fact that there were Dutch colonies or Swedish colonies. I had no idea until just now that Delaware was originally invaded by Sweden. Like, the Europeans that came over and settled in what is now Delaware came from Sweden. I did not know that. And I didn't know until like maybe 2 decades ago that New York, that it was Dutch people that came over and settled there. Beyond the fact that it was the Brits, like that it was England that came over and settled, and then like that the French were in Louisiana and Canada, and the Spanish were in South America. We weren't really taught this in school. You knew there were Dutch colonies. You don't think you knew there were Swedish colonies, but it doesn't really surprise. Yeah. I just, hi Puddle Club. Yeah, I definitely never heard anything before about Swedish colonies. That's just a new one on me. I was unaware of it. And it only strikes me as surprising because I've never heard of Sweden in the context of any of like the naval trade going on at the time. Like, Britain and the Netherlands were in significant competition regarding trade to like Southeast Asia, and like colonization was very much driven by economic interests of Britain and the Netherlands. And then I know like Spain and Portugal were involved trying to like have their own part. Like the Spanish pieces of 8 were the currency of the time, and like So those are honestly the four countries that I think of when I think of the colonial period: is England, the Netherlands, Spain, and Portugal. And I don't really think beyond that. So having Sweden pop up, just kind of a surprise, because they were never mentioned in any of the, like, Sweden has always been neutral in these things, from what you recall. I don't know. I do find it to be interesting. New Sweden. The only Swedish colony in America, established by the New Sweden Company in March 1638 and captured by the Dutch in 1655, the first expedition, including both Swedes and Dutchmen, was commanded by Peter Manwë, who purchased the land from the indigenous people and named this settlement Fort Christina, later Wilmington, Delaware, in honor of Sweden's queen, Johann Prince, who became governor in 1643, established additional settlements during his 10-year rule and attempted to deal with the Dutch, who considered the Swedes competitors and interlopers. He was succeeded in 1654 by Johann Claesen Reising, who arrived with more colonists and forced the Dutch to surrender Fort Casimir. The next year, a Dutch force under Peter Stuyvesant laid siege to Fort Christina and compelled New Sweden's surrender. The Swedish colonists were allowed, however, to keep their lands and possessions and continue their customs. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that and finding that, Hannah. That was the entry on New Sweden from Britannica Online. Oh, yeah, I'll look at that one later, Hannah. Yeah, what just happened? Sorry, I clicked and it opened a link, and I did not want to go to that link. Okay, there. It's all better now. There. But yeah, thank you for sharing the links. Okay, let me continue. The red ensign. Should be careful, because we know what happens to red shirts, especially when they are of ensign rank. Sorry. The British Red Ensign, which sometimes was referred to as the meteor flag of Old England, was established by Queen Anne in 1707 as the national emblem of Great Britain. This was the flag of the British during the French and Indian War. At the Battle of Quebec, General Wolfe's troops carried this red ensign on the Plains of Abraham. I have no idea where the Plains of Abraham are. To defeat General Montcalm under the white Bourbon flag of France. Both Generals Wolfe and Montcalm lost their lives in that encounter. I'm guessing that must be up around Quebec. Geographically. Interesting. In the beginning of our revolution, the complete separation of the American colonies from the mother country was not a specific aim. Initially, the desire was for redress for what was considered to be unfair treatment. As a result, the early flags were based upon the familiar British flags of the time: the red ensign, the King's color, and the Red Cross of St. George. When redress was not forthcoming, the idea of independence became a paramount thought, and the British emblems were eliminated, and the flags of the colonies became more distinctly American in their symbolism. This evolution is vivid in the development of the Grand Union flag and its transition into the first Stars and Stripes. Not to be confused with Ensign Red. So the Grand Union flag, this is an important one. On the 2nd of January, 1776, George Washington raised the Grand Union flag over his camp at Cambridge, I've never said it Cambridge before in my life, but whatever. It was the distinctly united American flag of the common cause and marked the real beginning of the American national existence, despite its 13 red and white stripes of the United Colonies. Its canton still carried the king's color. Still carried the king's color. The hoisting of that flag at Washington's headquarters coincided with the receipt of the hostile speech of the king made at a meeting of Parliament, at which the first petition of Congress was rejected. The royal speech was burned in public by Washington's infuriated soldiers. In a letter to Joseph Reed on the 4th of January, General Washington wrote, quote, "We are at length favored with the sight of His Majesty's most gracious speech, breathing sentiments of tenderness and compassion for his deluded American subjects. The speech I send you, and I am unfamiliar with this word unless it is misspelled. Farcial enough. We gave great joy to them without knowing or intending it. For on that day, which gave being to our new army, but before the proclamation came to hand, we hoisted the Union flag in compliment to the United Colonies. But behold, it was received at Boston as a token of the deep impression the speech had made upon us, and as a sign of submission. By this time, I presume they begin to think it strange that we have not made a formal surrender of our lines." In a letter from Boston dated January 17, 1776, a British transport captain wrote to his owners in London, quote, "I can see the rebels' camp very plain, whose colors a little while ago were entirely red, but on the receipt of the king's speech, which they burnt, they hoisted the Union flag, which is here supposed to intimate the union of the provinces." And then they have number 12, Stars and Stripes, the first Stars and Stripes. After the adoption of the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July, 1776, the Continental Congress on the 14th of June, 1777, resolved that the flag of the 13 United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field representing a new constellation. This was the first legislative action of which there is any record for the establishment of a national flag for a sovereign United States of America. No formal record exists of the discussions which preceded the adoption of our first Stars and Stripes, although there are many theories as to its origin. In the first Stars and Stripes, the Union of Stars replaced the king's color in the canton of the Grand Union flag. So flags 13 to 15, Stars and Stripes. With the admission into the Union of Vermont in 1791 and Kentucky in 1792, the Congress added a star and a stripe to the flag for each. Thus, in 1795, our flag changed to one of 15 stars and 15 stripes. When Fort McHenry was attacked by the British Navy during the War of 1812, it was a flag of 15 stars and 15 stripes, which flew over it. Francis Scott Key was a hostage aboard the British frigate Surprise. All night he watched the gallant defense of the fort. The early dawn revealed the flag still waving over its ramparts, giving the inspiration for the words of our national anthem. Flags 14 through 20, the starred flag. The admission of additional states posed an awkward problem of stripes for our flag. The admission to the Union of Tennessee in 1796, Ohio in 1803, Louisiana in 1812, Indiana in 1816, and Mississippi in 1817 prompted the Congress on 4 April 1818 to provide for the return to the original 13 stripes with a new star only for each new state. Consequently, in that year, our flag was changed from 15 stars and 15 stripes to 20 stars and 13 stripes. 15, the Mexican flag. The Mexican War and the incidents preceding it brought new flags onto our national scene. In a large part of the territory, which now is included within the southwestern United States, Spanish sovereignty and Spanish-French conflict prevailed from 1519 until 1821. Mexican sovereignty and Anglo-American colonization of what is now Texas began in 1821, As American colonization grew, friction with the Mexican government also grew. I'm always curious what's been crossed out. The battles of the Alamo and San Jacinto in 1836 climaxed the conflict, which resulted in Texas independence. They decided that was unnecessary to their remarks, apparently. 15A, the Alamo flag. While a state in Mexico, Texas ratified the Mexican Constitution of 1824. In 1835, the Mexican Congress repealed that constitution and set up Santa Anna as dictator. Texas refused to accept the change, declared her independence, and devised the Alamo flag as her banner. The battles of the Alamo and San Jacinto in 1836 climaxed the conflict, which resulted in Texas independence. 16. The Lone Star flag. In 1839, Texas adopted the Lone Star flag as its national emblem. The young republic's 9½ years of independence were full of difficulties, and there were varying movements for its annexation to the United States. In 1845, the Congress accepted Texas as a state. And if you look at the history of Texas and its flags, there's a reason there's a theme park called Six Flags, referring to the Six Flags over Texas. Now you're thinking of a very long flag with stripes for each state, or just really, really thin stripes. Let's see, 17, the California flag. In California, there was a growing dissatisfaction with Mexican rule. In 1835, President Andrew Jackson offered to buy the northern part of California. Andrew Jackson, there is a lot of not great history regarding that president. But this is going through factual, and so this is not a commentary on his on what he did. This is just the facts of what he did at this moment. So I'm not going to get into Andrew Jackson right now. In 1835, President Andrew Jackson offered to buy the northern part of California, including San Francisco Bay, but was refused. Great Britain and France also became interested in the territory. In 1846, Captain J.C. Fremont caused a band of Mexican cavalry mounts to be seized and prompted some American settlers to occupy Sonoma. This episode is known as the Bear Flag War, inasmuch as there was short-lived talk of California as an independent republic, and a flag with a bear as an emblem flew for a few days at Sonoma. Shortly thereafter, California was proclaimed a part of the United States. In 1848, Mexico ceded California to the United States. 18 to 33, the starred flag. By the time of the outbreak of the Civil War, the constellation of our flag had grown to 33 stars. On the morning of the 9th of January, 1861, the first hostile shot of the war was fired at the ship Star of the West as it attempted to reinforce and resupply Fort Sumter. The Star of the West flew the flag of 33 stars. Also, a flag of 33 stars flew over the defenders of Fort Sumter during its bombardment 3 months later. 19, the Bonnie Blue flag. I'm not familiar with this one. Let's see. At that time, a new flag entered the drama of America. This is very poetically written, and I think it's kind of fun. I take issue with some of their approach, but overall, it's very entertaining. As states of the South began seceding from the Union, a single starred Bonnie Blue flag had a spontaneous and informal but short-lived being as those states began the formation of a confederation. A single starred flag? So is that meaning 13 stripes with the blue field and just one star? If anybody wants to look up the Bonnie Blue flag and let me know for sure, I'd be interested to know. Let's see, 20, the Stars and Bars. The first national flag to be adopted formally by the Confederate States was the Stars and Bars of 3 red and white stripes and a blue canton with 7 white stars. The flag first was raised over the Capitol building in Montgomery, Alabama, on the morning of the 4th of March, 1861, while the Provisional Congress of the new Confederation was holding its first session. 21 to 34, the starred flag. On the 4th of July, 1861, the national flag of the United States grew to 34 stars, with the admission of Kansas to the Union. The 34-starred flag of the United States and the new stars and bars of the Confederate States first served under fire on the 21st of July, 1861, along a small creek in Northern Virginia called Bull Run. In the dust and heat of the still day of that battle, confusion arose in the identity of the two flags when hanging limp on their staffs, because they looked really similar to one another. The Bonnie Blue flag was solid blue with a white star in the center. Amazing. And there's a song about it. Thank you for checking. That is very interesting. Key Squared, hi. Thank you for the resubscription. It's good to see you. We are talking about the American flag today and its history because today is Flag Day in the United States. Thank you for dropping the link to the Wikipedia article on the Bonnie Blue flag. So, the stars and bars, which is a term that we still hear today, is not the Confederate flag that is the cross. It is it's stripes and 7 stars. If you go, so it's a red stripe, a white stripe, and a red stripe, a field of blue, and then a circle of stars. And at the Battle of Bull Run, otherwise also known as the Battle of Manassas, depending on which side of the battle you were on, soldiers couldn't tell the two flags apart unless they were blowing in the wind, because they both had red stripes and white stripes and a blue field with stars in it. So then comes the Confederate battle flag. Consequently, in September 1861, the Confederate Army adopted its square red battle flag with a fimbriated, that is a new word to me, fimbriated blue saltire of 13 white stars and a white border. Although never adopted officially by its government, the battle flag remained the popular flag of the Confederate Army throughout the war, and many Confederate soldiers never fought under any other banner. In mid-1863, both sides altered their official flags. So the Confederate battle flag is the design that is typically seen when referring to the Confederacy today. It is the one with it is the one that appeared on the General Lee in the Dukes of Hazzard television show. It is the red background with the blue X that's outlined in white and has stars running through it. That is the Confederate battle flag, which was not ever officially adopted as a flag by the Confederacy. Fimbriation. In heraldry and vexillology, fimbriation is the placement of small stripes of contrasting color around common charges or ordinaries, usually in order for them to stand out from the background, but often simply due to the designer's subjective aesthetic preferences, or for a more technical reason to avoid what would otherwise be a violation of the rule of tincture. Interesting. So the fimbriation is the white outline around the blue X. I had never seen that word before. let's see, the Confederate national flag, the likeness of the stars and bars to the flag of the United States often caused confusion. Therefore, the Confederate Congress, on the 1st of May, 1863, adopted the design of a new flag. This second national flag was white with a small battle flag in its canton. The first flag made this, so it was a completely white flag with the red square, blue X battle flag in the upper corner. The first flag made to this design was sent by President Davis to enfold the body of Stonewall Jackson. The second national flag went around the world and was the last active flag to fly over an element of the Confederate Armed Forces, being lowered from the peak of the Confederate cruiser Shenandoah in Liverpool, England, on the morning of the 6th of November, 1865, 6 months after the war was over. Ooh, fimbriated, adjective, having a fringed border. Fimbriate, let's see, having a very narrow border of another tincture, said especially of an ordinary or subordinary, having a narrow borderline of another tincture. Cool. The starred flag, again. On the 4th of July, 1863, the national flag of the United States expanded to 35 stars upon the admission into the Union of the new state of West Virginia. However, in the press of the war, these two national banners, both Northern or Southern, received little recognition in the field. Most Northern troops did not receive the 35-starred flag, but continued to carry their 34-starred flag throughout the remainder of the war. And no new emblem could replace the battle flag in the affections of the Southern soldiers. And then we get another Confederate national flag. March of 1865, during its last days, the Confederate Congress again changed its national flag, for it was found that the 2D, referring to the numbering system in here, it was found that the second national flag, when hanging limp, could be mistaken for a flag of truce, because it was completely white except for the canton. A wide vertical red bar was added to the fly edge of the former white flag. This third national flag was so late and so anticlimactic with the death of the Confederacy that the following month that its entrance virtually was unnoticed. The Russian flag. Russians came to California in 1805 and in 1812 founded at Fort Ross a post that held until 1841, whence they traded and hunted for furs. Vitus Bering discovered Alaska in 1741. During the 30 to 35 years following, the Russians were active in exploring the coast and islands and in establishing a trade with the natives. The excesses committed by private traders and companies caused the Russian government in 1799 to confine the trade and regulation of its American possessions to a semi-official corporation called the Russian-American Company. By treaty, the United States purchased Alaska for the sum of for a large amount of money. I'm uncertain whether that is supposed to be 7 million or some other number. The commas do not tell me. And on the 18th of October, 1867, the formal transfer of the territory was made at Sitka. On the 8th of November, 1867, the Russian forts lowered their Russian flags, which were replaced by the Stars and Stripes. This is a really interesting and very detailed analysis of the history of the flags, mostly on the North American continent. They haven't touched on the South American continent at all. And then we get the gigantic industrial expansion of our nation, which followed the Civil War, was accompanied by 33 years of peace, the longest period in our history without a major war. Suddenly, what's typed is before dawn, and it's crossed out, and written above it is during the night of The 15th of February, 1898, the peace was shattered by the explosion of the battleship Maine in Havana Harbor. The ensign, which had been lowered on the Maine at sunset, bore 45 stars. The flag, which continued as our national emblem throughout the Spanish-American War. In 1905, the Congress enacted the first federal law governing flag protocol and protecting our flag against desecration. By this time, the Stars and Stripes had become the flag of a great power. Shortly thereafter, the United States showed proof of its new stature when a fleet of 16 of its warships carries the flag of 46 stars around the world. Admiral Perry's proud message in 1909, Stars and Stripes nailed to the North Pole, alluded to our 46-starred flag of the time. In 1912, with the admission of New Mexico and Arizona as states, the American flag changed to 48 stars, the 25th Stars and Stripes to symbolize the United States of America. By an executive order of President Taft in that same year, the proportions and exact design of the flag were prescribed for the first time. So not until 1912 is the shape of the flag set. Ooh, hi Consilience. In my postage stamp collection, I have the 49-star flag postage stamp. That one seems to me like it would be somewhat rare because I have a thing that we'll look at that will explain why I think that. But I'm going to finish this real quick first. Under its flag of 48 stars, the United States played an even greater role in international affairs. This was our emblem throughout the historic years of the 2 world wars and the Korean conflict. 48 stars during both world wars and the Korean War, or conflict. In the stately green-draped cabinet room of the White House, on the 3rd day of January 1959, a battery of reporters and cameramen faced President Eisenhower, seated between the Vice President and the Speaker of the House. Lined up behind them was a group of distinguished Alaska officials. Nearby stood 2 flags of the United States, the familiar 48-star version, and a furled mystery. As the gold mantle clock ticked past the hour of noon, the President, using 6 souvenir pens, signed the proclamation admitting Alaska to the Union. Then, with 6 more pens, he signed an executive order adding the 49th star to the nation's flag. Finally, revealing the capital's best-kept secret, he unfurled America's new constellation. Incidentally, this 49-star flag was designed for President Eisenhower by the Institute of Heraldry. Scarcely 2 months later, the United States Congress voted Hawaii into the Union. On the 21st of August, 1959, the President approved the... We don't have the rest of it. But the admission of Hawaii gets us to the flag as it is today. And that note about 2 months after Alaska was admitted, Hawaii was admitted. There'd just be, yeah, wing it. This wasn't mine. I didn't write it. But the fact that it was only 2 months later is why I'm kind of surprised. Like, I would think that the 49-star flag postage stamp would be somewhat rare because it wouldn't have been produced for very long because they would have moved on to the 50-star flag postage stamp with the admission of Hawaii. Which I have things about. Things that I marked as, hey, these are neat. We should look at them. Box 3, folder 3, our flag. So this is a booklet. This booklet here is a government publication from the Office of Armed Forces Information and Education Department of Defense. makes you wonder. I don't know if they had to print the stamp while the official flag had 49 stars. It's a commemorative stamp. Yeah, so I'm guessing it's possible that they had some printed in advance, knowing that the admission of Alaska was coming, but not knowing that the admission of Hawaii was coming. Or it's possible that as a commemorative stamp, they ran a run of 49 stars and then moved on to 50. Because, so this government publication, the new flag design, President Eisenhower proclaimed the admission of 2 new states into the Union in 1959. Okay, the camera seems slightly blurry to me. I don't know about you all. I'm gonna zoom. Oh, I'm going to reload my controls. Hannah, I'm assuming that you did not just post the Bonnie Blue Flag link for a 3rd time on the VTUL Studios channel. I think maybe it's doing something odd, but I just confirming. Can't tell, but you really need new glasses. It's the 1959 4-cent 49-star US flag. You posted one for the flag and one for the song. Oh. Gotcha. I don't know. Anyway. It might have just been my eyes. I don't know. It should be autofocusing. It's set to autofocus. So, okay. President Eisenhower proclaimed the admission of 2 new states into the Union in 1959, Alaska on January 3rd and Hawaii on August 21st. This required the addition of 2 stars to the flag, one in 1959 and the other in 1960. The design of the new 50-star flag appears on the cover and on pages 17 to 18. The story of the origin of our national flag parallels the story of the origin of our country. As our country received its birthright from the peoples of many lands who were gathered on these shores to found a new nation, so this is very jingoistic. This booklet being a government publication that was specifically published by the Department of Defense, this is the propaganda that I was referring to in description of today's episode. What we actually read before that was sort of a breakdown from a sort of heraldic perspective of the different flags that had flown over the continent seemed much more factually based than this. This is very idealized. This is propagandizing a bit. So, let's see. As our country received its birthright from the peoples of many lands who were gathered on these shores to found a new nation, so did the pattern of the Stars and Stripes rise from several origins back in the mists of antiquity to become emblazoned on the standards of our infant republic. The star is a symbol of the heavens and the divine goal to which man has aspired from time immemorial. The stripe is symbolic of the rays of light emanating from the sun. Both themes have long been represented on the standards of nations, from the banners of the astral worshippers of ancient Egypt and Babylon to the 12-starred flag of the Spanish conquistadors under Cortés. Continuing in favor, they spread to the striped standards of Holland and the West India Company in the 17th century, and to the present patterns of stars and stripes on the flags of several nations of Europe, Asia, and the Americas. The first flags adopted by our colonial forefathers were symbolic of their struggles with the wilderness of a new land. I'm sorry, but once again, no mention that there were already people here. beavers, pine trees, rattlesnakes, anchors, and various like insignia with mottos such as hope, liberty, appeal to heaven, or don't tread on me were affixed to the different banners of colonial America. The first flag of the colonists to have any resemblance to the present Stars and Stripes was the Grand Union flag, sometimes referred to as the Congress colors. It consisted of 13 stripes, alternately red and white, representing the 13 colonies, with a blue field in the upper left-hand corner bearing the crosses of St. George and St. Andrew, signifying union with the mother country. This banner was first flown by the ships of the colonial fleet in the Delaware River in December 1775. The Grand Union flag was the standard of the Continental Army when the latter came into being in January 1776, and was also carried by Marines and American Blue Jackets, comprising an expeditionary force in the West Indies during that year. During the previous year, a canton section of 13 stripes appeared on the yellow silk standard of the Philadelphia Troop of Light Horse when the latter served as an escort to General Washington, who was journeying to Cambridge, I did it again, Massachusetts, to assume command of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire volunteers. Before today, I've never pronounced it Cambridge, ever. And yet, for some reason, twice now in this stream. Anyway, I'm not going to read the entire thing. If you want to find this, it is a government publication simply called Our Flag that was published in 1958, and so various government documents libraries probably have a copy of it somewhere. It might be available online, or we have a copy here, and you can always ask Special Collections at Virginia Tech for access to it. But these are some of the flags from the early United States of America. The pine tree with an appeal to heaven, Washington's cruisers. Liberty with a moon on a blue field, Moultrie. Field of blue with white stars, with a white field with hope and an anchor, Rhode Island. The continental flag, a red field with a white field and a pine tree. That would be a very different flag than what we have today. Oh, and then you get the Bunker Hill flag, which is a very small pine tree. The Bennington flag. It looks like the stars are in the shape of a sad face. Oh, we could talk about Don't Tread on Me. That would be interesting. But here we have the Grand Union flag. The Grand Union flag, sometimes called the First Navy Ensign and the Cambridge flag, among other designations, was the immediate predecessor of the Stars and Stripes. It's carried on the flagship Alfred on December 3rd, 1775, as the naval ensign of the 13 colonies, after Commodore Essex Hopkins assumed command of the Navy built by Congress. Huh. It's an interesting flag. So then you get the first Stars and Stripes. 13 stripes, 13 stars. Followed by the 15-star, 15-stripe flag. And then this booklet gives instructions on the guidelines for how it can be displayed. Yeah. So, there's also in here, though, is a manuscript also titled Our Flag. I don't know if it's the same, like if this is the source manuscript that the booklet was written from, but we're going to find out. Oh, yes. Oh, gosh. We should look at this because if you are from the United States, you have at some point in your life encountered the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, which it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I realized that pledging allegiance to the flag is not a universal experience. It was just so much a part of life growing up in the United States that it never even occurred to me that in other countries, they don't all pledge allegiance to their country's flag. So that was a learning experience for me. Anyway, what you'll see here, so this is a document from December 1959. And this document includes this phrase here. 1959, one nation under God. I know. Yes, that's what I was looking for. So, the pledge, 1959, including under God. And the notations here, so this wording of the pledge varies slightly from the original, which was drawn up in 1892 in the office of the Youth's Companion magazine in Boston. It was first used in the public schools in celebration of Columbus Day, 12 October 1892. The pledge received additional recognition by Congress in an approved act 22nd of June 1942. The phrase "under God" was added to the pledge by a congressional act of 14 June 1954. So what is the time difference there between 1892 and 1954? I can't do that math in my head. 62 years. For 62 years, the pledge existed without the words "under God." At that time, President Eisenhower said that, quote, "In this way, we are reaffirming the transcendence of religious faith in America's heritage and future. In this way, we shall constantly strengthen those spiritual weapons which forever will be our country's most powerful resource in peace and war." So, they are part of it now, but for the first 62 years that the pledge existed, they were not. Let's see. So yeah, this appears to just be the manuscript for the booklet itself. I love this commentary, though. "The star is a symbol of the heavens and the divine goal to which man has aspired from time immemorial. The stripe is symbolic of the rays of light emanating from the sun." And the next to it, "This is romantic speculation which has no basis in fact as regards the US flag." And yet, that is the exact phrasing that made it into the booklet. Let's see. "The Grand Union flag was the standard of the Continental Army when the latter came into being in January 1776. Does that remain in the booklet? It does. It does indeed. Like, that is the exact text as it appears in the booklet, the published booklet. The note is, "This is a very incorrect statement." On 14 June 1775, the Continental Congress authorized a federal army and federalized the approximately 30,000 troops of the New England militia, which were in being before Boston at that time. The next day, 15 June, George Washington was appointed as commander-in-chief. So the statement about the flag being the one that was there when the Continental Army became a thing is not the part that's incorrect. It's that the army already existed and just became the Continental Army. Interesting. Okay. Oh, I love this one. "Some Americans still believe that Betsy Ross made the first flag, although historians dispute this story." And the commentary, "The Betsy Ross legend has been quite thoroughly disproved by historians." I'm sure that the notations here are from Colonel Temple, who, from the biographical note that we glanced at, we know was in charge of military heraldry for a time. So just having the notations in there, pointing out all the places where this booklet is wrong, I thought was really interesting. Let's see. I have here one other item, let's see, from the Colonel Temple papers. From 21 August 1959, the White House Executive Order 10834, the flag of the United States. This being the executive order from President Eisenhower, changing the flag to the one that currently still flies over the nation. Whereas the state of Hawaii has this day been admitted into the Union, and whereas Section 2 of Title 4 of the United States Code provides as follows, quote, "On the admission of a new state into the Union, 1 star shall be added to the union of the flag, and such addition shall take effect on the 4th day of July, then next succeeding such admission. And whereas the Federal Property and Administrative Services Act of 1949, 63 Statute 377, as amended, authorizes the President to prescribe policies and directives governing the procurement and utilization of property by executive agencies, and whereas the interests of the government require that orderly and reasonable provision be made for various matters pertaining to the flag, and that appropriate regulations governing the procurement and utilization of national flags and Union Jacks by executive agencies be prescribed, now therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in me as President of the United States and as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States, the Federal Property and Administrative Services Act of 1949, as amended, is hereby ordered as follows. Part 1. Design of the flag. Section 1. The flag of the United States shall have 13 horizontal stripes, alternate red and white, and a union consisting of white stars on a field of blue. Section 2. The positions of the stars in the union of the flag and in the Union Jack shall be as indicated on the attachment to this order, which is hereby made a part of this order. Section 3, the dimensions of the constituent parts of the flag shall conform to the proportions set forth in the attachment referred to in Section 2 of this order. Ugh. Regulations governing executive agencies, gives sizes authorized for executive agencies. Dimensions. All right, Section 31. The flag prescribed by Executive Order number 10798 of January 3rd, 1959, shall be the official flag of the United States until July 4th, 1960. On that date, the flag prescribed by Part 1 of this order shall become the official flag of the United States, but this section shall neither derogate from Section 24 or Section 25 of this order, nor preclude the procurement for executive agencies of flags provided for by or pursuant to this order at any time after the date of this order. Wow, that was dense. Let's see. As used in this order, the term executive agencies, blah, 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 blah. And of course, revokes the previous one, which would have been the 49-star executive order. And then the attachments. 13 stripes and 50 stars. And the thing is, so many people alive today have never experienced any of the previous flags. This flag has been around. This has been the official flag of the United States since 1960. That was before I was born. That was before large portions of our population were born. Yes, there are still people here who were alive before the current flag, but it just would seem weird to me to change the flag because my entire life it's been the exact same flag. That's not to say that it couldn't change. It just would seem very strange. 21 August 1959. The national flag. In connection with the admission of Hawaii as a state of the Union, the President today issued an executive order adding the 50th star to the Union of the flag. The new flag will supersede the 49-star flag, which was prescribed on the admission of Alaska as a state of the Union. By law, the new 50-star flag will become the official flag of the United States on July 4th, 1960, the birthday of the Union. Display of the new flag before that time would be improper. However, it would not be improper to display 48-star flag or the 49-star flag after that date. With limited exceptions, agencies of the federal government will continue to display the 48-star flag and the 49-star flag so long as they remain in good condition and until existing stocks of unused flags are exhausted. It is appropriate for all citizens to do the same. Following is certain information with respect to the historical and symbolic aspects of the national flag. History of national flag. Before we became a nation, our land knew many flags. Long ago, so what we started with, this is what it led to. It ultimately, that history that we read, that had been prepared, presumably by Colonel Temple, made its way into this statement by the White House. Before we became a nation, our land knew many flags. Long ago, the Norsemen probed our coastal waters, sailing under the banner of the Black Raven. Columbus carried a Spanish flag across the seas. The Pilgrims carried the flag of Great Britain. The Dutch colonists brought their striped flag to New Amsterdam. The French explored the continent under the royal fleur-de-lis. Each native Indian tribe had its own totem and insignia. Hey, for once, somebody mentioned the indigenous people. It's the first time we've encountered that today. Immigrants of every race and nationality in seeking a new allegiance have brought their symbols of loyalty to our shores. During our revolution, various banners were used by the not yet united colonies. A green pine tree with the motto, "An Appeal to Heaven," was popular with our young Navy. The rattlesnake's warning, "Don't tread on me," was displayed by aroused colonists along the Atlantic seaboard. The Moultrie Liberty flag, a large blue banner with a white crescent in the upper corner, rallied the defenders of Charleston, South Carolina in 1776. The Bunker Hill flag was a blue banner with a white canton filled with a red cross and a small green pine. The flag of the maritime colony of Rhode Island bore a blue anchor under the word "Hope." Strikingly similar to the Stars and Stripes was the flag carried by the Green Mountain Boys of Vermont at the Battle of Bennington on August 16, 1777. When Washington took command of the Continental Army at Cambridge, Massachusetts in 1776, he stood under the Grand Union flag, which continued to show a dependence upon Great Britain. The canton of this flag was filled with the crosses of St. George, England, and St. Andrew, Scotland. The first Stars and Stripes was created by the Continental Congress on June 14, 1777. This date is now observed nationally as Flag Day. In this flag, the 13 stars representing a constellation were arranged in a variety of designs, the most popular, with the stars in a circle so that no state could claim precedence over another, is known as the Betsy Ross flag in honor of the seamstress who is supposed to have sewn the first one. As the American frontier expanded, 2 new states were added to the Union, and these were incorporated into the flag. This meant that 2 stars and 2 stripes were added to the design, making a total of 15 each. It was this flag that withstood enemy bombardment at Fort McHenry, Maryland, September 13th to 14th, 1814, and inspired Francis Scott Key to write the Star-Spangled Banner. Later, when other states were added to the Union, the Congress, feeling that more stripes would blur the basic design, returned to the original 13 red and white stripes. Since 1818, each new state has brought a new star to the flag. This growing pattern of stars could be said to reflect the growing dimensions of America's responsibilities, as the 13 stripes reflect the constant strength of our country's traditions. The 50 states and dates of their entry into the Union. And they're listed here in alphabetical order with the dates that they were added to the Union. I'm not going to read them out. Customs and usage as to flag of the United States. Laws have been written to govern the display of the flag and to ensure a proper respect for it. Custom has decreed certain other observances in regard to its use. As a symbol of the nation standing for our heritage of liberty and justice, the flag is naturally held in highest honor by all citizens. In recent years, the Congress of the United States of America has drawn together the existing rules and customs pertaining to the display and use of the flag. These can be found in Public Law 829 of the 77th Congress in the Public Laws, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, copies may be obtained from the government printing office. Indeed, they likely can be. I just thought that was kind of interesting when I came across it. The actual announcement and copy of the executive order. And then when I started to read it, I was like, oh, this is clearly where, that history that was in there, I can see it as the bones of, yeah. Hannah, thank you for the reminder that there are 10 minutes left. Got a flag that I'm going to share here in just a second. I will, before I pull it out, just mention that there is a slight content warning related to the flag I'm going to pull out. Because it is a flag from our April 16th condolence collection, which is a bunch of materials that were sent following the shootings that happened here at Virginia Tech. So just the only content warning is that it is related to the shootings that occurred here. Just want to give people a moment, and if you need to step out, that is totally understood. So I will not be unfolding it because that is not something that we would do, but I will show it. And then there is also a plaque. So, I mean, it just looks like a folded flag, right? But the plaque that goes with it, the United States Ship Constitution. Let's see if I can display them together here. Yeah. To all who shall see these presents, greetings. Know ye that reposing special trust and confidence in the patriotism of, in memory of all those fallen at Virginia Tech, I do hereby certify that this flag of the United States of America was flown on board USS Constitution, Old Ironsides, the oldest ship in the United States Navy and the oldest commissioned warship afloat in the world, on this, the 12th day of May, in the year of our Lord, 2007, to honor the brave souls that were tragically taken away. By the commanding officer, William A. Bullard III, Commander, United States Navy, 70th in command. So there are there are many items like this in the condolence collection, but I generally don't pull too many of them for the stream. In fact, I think this is the first time I've ever pulled anything from those materials. I mentioned sometime last year, I think, that I had originally thought to try and include that because it's a rather large collection. It just never seemed right as far as like sort of the vibe of the stream. It always seemed just a bit heavy of a topic, so I didn't want to end up pulling things for it. But I thought pulling this flag as part of this Flag Day stream, it being one of the only actual flags that we have in our collection, I thought it was worth doing. So, and it was flown on the USS Constitution and then sent as a remembrance for the victims that were lost, which is kind of special. Take that, set it aside a little. And there are other, like, I know there are ways to, like, request flags flown. Your family also has a folded flag, got it at your grandpa's funeral for his service during Korea. Yeah, that is a common, it's a common item to have. Often it gets put into a shadow box. But especially at funerals for, in fact, I think it is anyone who served, you can request to have the flag. You can get a flag from the post office for fallen vets. Funeral home took care of the request for you. Yeah. So I know that multiples of my uncles' flags were given at their funerals. Let's see. I know we're basically done, but like, we're basically out of time, but there's still 3 minutes. So, and I have put flags in the books to note things that I thought were interesting to share. So, the Star-Spangled Banner. This from the Smithsonian Institution, an excellent source of information. Museum of History and Technology. The Star-Spangled Banner, the original flag which inspired Francis Scott Key to write the words of our national anthem, today hangs in the Central Hall of the Museum of History and Technology at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. Today, in this case, being 1963. You have a picture of your grandfather on your front desk at work from his time in Korea because it's your favorite picture of him. No flags in the picture, but your brother has a small flag that he carried with him in Korea. That is neat. So this booklet is a little bit of a history, which we've already encountered. We saw the story. But we saw the story of the song. So, how the flag was made. The Star-Spangled Banner was made in Baltimore by Mrs. Mary Pickersgill, a maker of ships' banners and flags, assisted by her daughter, Mrs. Caroline Purdy, under contract to the United States government for the sum of $405.90. She had been asked to do the work by Commodore Joshua Barney of the U.S. Navy and General John Stricker of the Maryland Militia, made of first-quality, long-fibered English wool bunting. This type of cloth was not made in America at that early date. The flag was started in July 1813 and completed on August 19th. As far as is known, it was raised at Fort McHenry soon thereafter. In 1815, the flag was presented to Major Armistead, as was the custom of the day when he retired as commander of the fort. He bequeathed it to his daughter, Mrs. William Stewart Appleton, who had been born at Fort McHenry, and she in turn bequeathed it to her son, Mr. Eben Appleton. In 1907, Mr. Appleton loaned the flag to the United States National Museum of the Smithsonian Institution, and in 1912 he converted the loan to a gift with the stipulation that it never be removed for any reason, so that any American citizen who visits the museum with the expectation of seeing the flag may be sure of finding it in its accustomed place, and so it may be seen there today. That is a very, very restrictive stipulation. This is captioned as earliest known photograph of the Star-Spangled Banner, Boston Navy Yard, 1874. The curious red V on the fifth white stripe is a mystery. What it means or how it got there is unknown. Interesting that it is not ever allowed to be removed for any reason, which I imagine there would be a circumstance in which it would be removed, that being collections are being moved out because the building is flooding or something like that. I could see that they might allow it to be moved in a circumstance like that where it's going to be destroyed if they don't. But a stipulation saying it may not ever be removed for any reason so that people can see it when they come here means they can never take it out to clean it or do conservation work on it. And it also means that it's probably faded since the time that it was first given, because it was first given in 1907 is when it first arrived at the museum. Today it's probably in a case that helps protect it from fading and damage from light. But it probably already suffered a bunch of that. just interesting. So this is a neat little booklet. This appears to be like a souvenir booklet or something from the Smithsonian. Possible that they still publish it today. I don't know. But that is going to be the last thing that we look at for Flag Day today. When I saw that this was happening on the 14th of June, I was like, well, that's Flag Day. Let me see what we got on the American flag. And we can do an entire episode. And I think I found some good stuff. I really like some of the stuff that was in the Temple Papers. I did not know until I read his bio on stream today, the biographical note from his papers, that he had designed the Medal of Freedom. So I may need to do a stream at some point in the future. I just need to look into the collection and see what there is. But we have a Medal of Freedom here in our collections from an alum who was awarded the Medal of Freedom. I think it's on loan right now to the Corps Museum for display. So I would want to wait to do any stream about the design of it until we get that back, so that I could bring it and share it on stream as well. But I will make a note that that is an idea, because I did not realize that he had done the design until I read the biographical note today. Be Open Sky, I'm glad you enjoyed it. But we are going to end for today, and there will not be another Archival Adventures until the last Wednesday in July. I have some stuff that I need to focus on work-wise, and in order to free up enough time to be able to get it accomplished, I needed to take a break from this, because there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes into prepping for this, even though it's all improvised live. And so for the next month, no episodes. We will return on the last Wednesday in July for a collection, my dossier. The last Wednesday in July will be one in our series focused on high energy physics. I don't remember specifically what collection it will be, but I know it's about nuclear reactors. So that will be the next episode on the last Wednesday in July. Let me go ahead and see where we're going to be raiding. All right, so there's our normal options exist. Monterey Aquarium today has Shark Cam, and Stephen Joy's has Power Wash Simulator, which is incidentally a very fun game, very calming, and just a good time. And just because we like going over there, I'm gonna head over to Stephen again, because it's always good. That's where we're gonna raid. Stephen is a wonderful streamer, always playing lovely indie games, and just has an absolutely marvelous community. Definitely worth a follow. Also wears lovely tiny hats, so please do say hi when we get over there. And thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope that I will see all of you again when we return, or in one of my non-archives streams. It'd be lovely to have you join again soon. Until I see you next, though, keep exploring history.